Hello everyone and welcome to what will be one of the last videos of 2019 on my channel. I know it has been like months since I have given that intro or since I have recorded a video at all on YouTube. And I am honestly stoked. I'm super excited to be back. The end of Gen 7 was not dull for me. I did actually participate in a couple of extra things that I wasn't uploading. I did a end of Gen 7 tournament. I actually made finals in that and then memed out to lose, which I was totally fine with. I promised I would bring a transform or a metronome Mew, so it had to hold the item metronome and have the move metronome to the finals, and I did bring it, and I actually brought transform as well, and if I had clicked transform, then there's a chance I could have actually won the game, but I clicked metronome because I had to. You know, I made a promise, and I did it, and I had a blast, dude. So anyway, that's totally irrelevant to what's going on right now. So what this is going to be is, obviously, this is my draft analysis video for the PCL Season 3, the first Wi-Fi draft league of Generation 8 that I will be participating in. And concurrently with that, I will be doing some other stuff. So check out another video that's going to be posted very, very shortly after this one, possibly even before this one, where I will be doing another draft analysis, getting ready for Gen 8. We are ramping into it super fast. Now, first things first, though, before I get to anything else, I just thank you if you're watching this video. Honestly, it's been months since I've posted a video on YouTube, and that can kill a channel, and I totally respect that. This is technically the second, but this was much more of a scheduled break, but the second break that I've ever done on the channel. And so anyone who's still here, meaning that you've gone through either the first or both of the breaks, thank you so much for watching the channel at all. It's really not necessarily, you know, I don't do this for the views. It's not what it forces me, but it does encourage me that you guys enjoy the content enough to come back, and I really do appreciate every one of you who takes any moment of your day to watch these videos. So that's not what you're here for. You're not here to hear me babble on about other things. You're here to watch and figure out whether the New York Empoleon are going to win PCL Season 3. Now, last season, we did not perform as well as I would have wanted, although we did manage to beat Dai, who would go on to be the champion. So hey, not a terrible showing on some level, but then again, didn't even make playoffs. But we did get to be the All-Star, so someone out there, some PCL fan, shout-outs to you for naming me and Coinks the All-Stars and letting us have a blast playing in a little, you know, a little 1v1 match later on after the season was over when we didn't make playoffs. Anyway, Season 3 of the PCL will be starting out with the Gen 8 Galar decks only. This is on Wi-Fi, so Home has not been released. However, once Home comes out, Home mons and movesets are immediately legalized mid-season if that is the way it goes. So, as you can see, right before me, and we got the 10th overall pick, if I'm not mistaken, and right before me was Styx, who did pick up Mew. Again, Mew, a Pokemon that's probably not going to be as good if you don't have Home, but once Home gets released, which it should prior to even playoffs for this, because this will be, you know, 3 months of playing. Once Home gets released, Mew gets a lot better very, very quickly. So he picks up Mew, a lot of the best mons in the format, obviously going right off the bat. But I decided I was going to give a shot to Poltegeist. Poltegeist, sort of a one-trick pony. I know a lot of people talk about that. And spoilers, I'm recording this before the actual draft stream, but I'm sure they're going to talk about how it is a bit of a one-trick pony at the draft stream as well. But Poltegeist it's a sweeper, pure and simple. It is super fun. Shell Smash or Nasty Plot. Give this thing, you know, weakness policy. Give this thing weak armor, and it's going to go crazy. Weak armor obviously boosting its speed since it doesn't really care if it takes a hit. Ghost type is great when it comes to sweeping, because priority moves like Mach Punch and Extreme Speed, which are two fairly common ones, and Fake Out, all don't hit it. Obviously, you do have to watch out for things like Bullet Punch, things like Sucker Punch coming my way, but those don't hit it. Additionally, with the removal of Pursuit, this thing does get even more dangerous since it can switch out freely if the situation doesn't arise for it to sweep immediately. Now, this thing isn't necessarily going to be able to come every week, and with your first round pick and your first pick ever in Generation 8, you probably want something that's going to come all the time. But I didn't think I was going to get another chance to grab Poltegeist or a lot of new mons, honestly. And so I decided I was going to grab it here. Now, before I continue on with my draft, I do want to talk a little bit about this league's rules because that does impact the remainder of my draft pretty significantly. The first thing that I want to talk about is the inclusion of Dynamaxing in this league, and many leagues are going to ban Dynamaxing, I'm sure. The TBL, the league that I run, is one of those leagues, for instance, that will ban Dynamaxing, but this league is actually going to allow it, and what that means is that this league is going to have a mon that you pick, sort of like Megas from 7th Gen Draft League, where it has to Dynamax the first eligible turn, or it forfeits the right to do so. So you could choose not to Dynamax, but then you do not get the chance to do so. You can switch it in and switch it out, and switch it back in later, but if you're going to click a move, and it's the first time that mon's been in, you have to Dynamax if you're going to Dynamax that battle. It's really limiting, and honestly, I don't know if that's the best way to handle it, but Dynamax is such a broken mechanic that anything else would have just broken the mechanic immediately. That mon also has to be coming from tier 3 or below, so that is something that I had to plan into my strategy, and as you can see, we only get 10 total picks for the entire draft, unlike Gen 7, where we normally got 11 because of the limited number of mons in the format. So, when I picked up Poltegeist, I was going back and forth on other mons that I wanted, and I really wanted to grab the core of Poltegeist, Conkeldurr, and Mandibuzz because that sounded really, really solid. Shores up one of the best things to handle Dark types in Conkeldurr, since Dark types is something Poltegeist really doesn't do well with, and then also gives me a really good thing to switch in when things are attacking Poltegeist in Mandibuzz, since it resists both Dark and Ghost types attacks, which are the things that are going to hit Poltegeist the hardest. However, I was talking to Styx. You'll hear Styx a few times mentioned in this video. I was talking to Styx, and he really wanted Mandibuzz, and I said I was going to take it round 3, and he said if it got back to him in round 2, he was going to take it, which means that unless I sniped him, which I would, since I was lower than him on the wheel, I could have done, that would have been really shady. So I didn't do that, and it ended up changing my entire draft plan to not get Mandibuzz at this time. So instead of Conkeldurr, I decided to go with Clefable as my draft pick here. Conkeldurr was still on the table, but I decided I was going to go with Clefable here because I do think it is also a really good thing to switch into Dark types, since it also resists. It gives me a Wish Passer, which can then allow Poltegeist to come in for free. It's a Cleric. It gives me Rocks. It's really, really good, obviously, and then post-home it gets even more moves than it already does, but it still has reliable recovery. It gives me a Wish Passer, Aromatherapy. I know it lost Heal Bell in the Generational Shift, but it got Aromatherapy, or kept it. I'm not sure if it had it before. So that is something to keep in mind. It still has Cosmic Power, it still has Calm Mind, it still has a bunch of moves because it was originally a normal type and now it's a fairy, so it got access. It's just a bulky, really good mon that just gives me a lot to work with Poltegeist, and it resists the Dark type that Poltegeist is weakest to, and is something that I think is a hole I would need to fill as early as possible with as good a mon as possible. And there aren't that many fairies in this format, so I wanted to grab one of the best ones that I could. So I grabbed the Clefable, and right after this, Styx does pick up the Mandibuzz, and that would be lost to me as an option for the rest of the draft. But that's all right. With my third pick, I decided to go with Arcanine. This was the time in which I figured out what I wanted my mon that was going to Dynamax to be. And I realized that if I decided to take it, I was going to need to take something that could eat a Fire-type attack. Because, well, as you'll see, it's going to need some help with that. So Arcanine gives me Flash Fire, which is amazing for literally eating a Fire-type attack and then buffing itself. Gives me access to Priority, which is something that I desperately wanted on this team, since Poltegeist might fail to sweep, but Arcanine can come in and give me that priority. It's got Intimidate as another great ability, or Justified if I do fear a Knockoff. Now, Knockoff is less prevalent, but since Poltegeist is my main mon and Clefable as a backup does mean Knockoff is a thing people want to click against my team, since both those things hate it. Even though Clefable resists it, it does not want to lose its item most of the time. Justified can bring this thing in, get the attack boost, and then proceed to who knows what, potentially sweep. Extreme Speed at +1 is doing a lot of damage, and a Steel type that comes in to resist that. Okay, here's a, have fun with this Flare Blitz, see how you're doing. So Arcanine, really solid mon, I thought, to shore up a lot of holes on the team, and just gives me access to so many different things. This is also a really slow format, and Arcanine's base 95 looks a lot better this gen than it used to. So I do think Arcanine deserves a spot on this team and deserved an early round pick, especially because, and I wasn't going to let it wait any longer, my Dynamax mon for this season is Durant. It was a tier 3, it was Dynamax legal. And guys, I just want to point out the fact that this thing gets access to a boatload of moves. It doesn't have Hone Claws anymore since the generation shifted, but it does have access to approximately 1 million moves. And this thing is going to be able to sweep, since it still gets its hustle boost when it Dynamaxes, but it's unable to miss. So I get 3 turns of hustle boosted attacks that aren't going to miss my opponent. Not to mention, this thing gets fighting. It gets superpower, which means that you are going to be able to see this thing get +1 attack and then come out of Dynamax and keep that +1 attack. Max Steel Spike gives me that defense. That's amazing. And who knows what else I can run on this thing. It's got a huge variety of moves, and therefore a huge variety of types of things to Dynamax with. 3 turns of Durant Space, 109 speed, and stupid attack with a hustle boost that can't miss is amazing, and I'm totally down. So this was the mon I was going to plan around Dynamaxing, especially because if you think about the things that Poltegeist fears, the dark types, the ghost types, especially, as well as just things Poltegeist doesn't want to take, like mons with priority and stuff, Durant just doesn't care about most priority moves. It's got enough physical defense to deal with what Poltegeist weak to. Those two just go so well together. And so I figured grabbing Durant, grabbing it early, and then using it effectively this season is going to be an absolute monster and menace and nuke against my opponent's team, especially as a Dynamax mon. Now, with Arcanine especially, I think this thing is going to be even more threatening because people aren't going to want to necessarily just freely click Fire-type attacks, because that Arcanine could at any time switch in and take those Fire-type attacks and be able to dish out big damage in return, and Durant can switch out and be free to come back in later. Now, we do have rules. You are not allowed to give your Dynamax mon a Choice Scarf or a Life Orb. Even if you choose that you are not going to Dynamax them in that battle, you are just not allowed to give them those items. So that it does limit Durant a little bit. Obviously, it loves access to Choice Scarf, because then it would be able to outspeed everything. But I understand why that's a little bit broken with Dynamaxing. And it does love access to Life Orb as well, just because damage. Especially once it gets Home Claws back after Home comes out, this thing's going to be a nuisance. Until then, I don't really see a reason not to Dynamax it most battles, because it's just going to be good anyway. It's just better and more accurate. But after Home comes out, there is an argument to be made for wanting to set up Home Claws instead of Dynamaxing, giving myself a little bit more variety of damage moves, and just not necessarily locking myself into those Dynamax moves that have potentially negative backup effects in terms of like Max Rockfall setting up Sand. Could actually come back to bite me in the butt depending on what mons I've got left, like if Poltegeist has a Sash or something that I don't want to break. So things like that. But I think Durant deserves a spot on the team, and I'm really excited to use it this season. Next, I grabbed Quillfish. This was one that I agonized over what water type I wanted, and they were going like mad in rounds 3 and 4, and I knew I had to grab other mons and wait on the water type. I was really debating to grab Lapras because I think an ice type is incredible in this meta, but I just figured I needed some bulk. I needed something that was going to have some priority, and obviously Lapras has Ice Shard, but like it's a Lapras, so Quillfish fit the bill a little bit better. Intimidate is great. Don't doubt a setting up its own rain Swift Swim Quillfish. Just don't doubt it, because that thing can come in, set up its own rain, and sweep on its own. Liquidation is just great stab alongside Poison Jab. It's a grounded poison. It gives me both spikes and toxic spikes. I mean, what more could you ask for out of a round 5 pick, especially in this meta where things are starting to get drafted, like Piloswine and other things are starting to get drafted that are not even fully evolved. So Quillfish, it really fit the role of that bulky water. It was cheaper. It wasn't one of the high tier mons that I didn't have a lot of slots for left. So it was something that I was definitely considering and looking into and trying to figure out how to fit a good bulky water onto my team, and Quillfish ended up being the mon that I decided would be best to fit that role. Next up, like I said, we were going to start seeing all these Eviolite mons. I wanted Kinkeldurr earlier. I actually think Girder may be better than Kinkeldurr for this team. Again, our goal in this team is to give either Poltegeist or Durant the opportunity to sweep, and you are seeing the way that we are facilitating that with all of the mons on this team, since everything else helps those two do their job well. Clefable is a cleric and a heal. Wish Passer Arcanine allows for a fire type attack aimed at Durant to be just absorbed and neutralized. Quillfish does a similar job, but also can threaten other types of mons. Obviously, being a bulky water, threatens fire types in a different way than Arcanine does. And now Girder is just bulk and Mach Punch. Again, we've got a lot of like clean, like little finishers in Arcanine, Quillfish, and Girder which have good priority moves and can actually get in there for a little bit of extra chip damage if something happens where I don't quite get the kill. Girder's got access to a pretty strong Iron Fist boosted Mach Punch. Even though it's not fully evolved, it gets Eviolite, which makes it bulkier than Kinkeldurr, and still gets Defog just like Kinkeldurr does, since it's an egg move now. So Girder, a pretty good source of removal, which is something, as you can see, my team was sorely lacking and desperately needed. And you'll see I fixed that real quick. Spoilers, I fixed that problem. There's plenty of removal on this team. But Girder has access to defog, gets pretty good coverage moves. Once home comes out, it will get knockoff again as well. So this thing, yeah, it lost knockoff, but it still has really good coverage moves. If fairies are a threat, then Poison Jab is still an accessible thing. This thing, obviously, Drain Punch for recovery. Eviolite makes it super bulky. Guts is a good status absorber if I need it to be. So Girder can definitely put in work. I do actually, I was sad that I lost Kinkelder and couldn't grab it once I grabbed Clefable, but Girder feels like it feels like I actually got luckier waiting on it and grabbing a little bit cheaper Kinkelder. We'll see how the season plays out, but spoilers, I play Kinkelder week 1, so Girder versus Kinkelder is we're not wasting any time. We're playing Kinkelder week 1, and we are going to see who is the superior Dur in the Pokemon format. Next up, we decided I needed a grass type, and I was not sure what to get. I still needed a tier 5 as well, since Girder is tier 4, and I just wasn't. There was not a lot of grass types left, and nothing in the low tiers that I really wanted. So I decided I was going to pick up Shiftry. Again, I was looking at my removal like, not super confident. So it does give me defog. It didn't lose it like most flying types did, which is super weird. So for home, most flying types don't have it. Like Togekiss does not have defog, things like that. So Girder does, not Girder, Shiftry does, Girder also. Shiftry does have access to defog still, which is nice. Really, really powerful. Let's be honest. Leaf Storms, good dual typing. Again, switches into things Poltegeist doesn't want to take, and Poltegeist switches into things this doesn't want to take. So like this thing doesn't want to take a fighting type move or a bug type move. Well, Poltegeist, Clefable, those are fine taking those kind of moves. Obviously Arcanine, Quillfish, Durant, they all resist bug. Girder, literally every single one on my team up till this point resists bug, so I wasn't worried about U-turn spam. This thing fit my team really well. Again, it was more priority. It's got Sucker Punch. It's mixed attacker, which is really nice, something that my team didn't really have outside of Arcanine. Is something that could go on either side and do whatever attacking it wanted to do. And so this thing gives a little bit of variety to my team. It's super powerful Leaf Storms, super powerful Sucker Punches, and just really useful. And once home comes out again, also access to knockoff. So maybe not at the beginning going to be a knockoff spammer, but by the end of the season, it can be defog, knockoff. It can be pretty fantastic. And next up, we were debating back and forth. I honestly, this story is pretty funny. I realized that Galarian Mr. Mime was tier 5. And I was like, I want that. I absolutely want that. That is way underpriced. That thing is way too good for tier 5. And I was going to take it before Shiftry. And then Alex Cool Rocket, who's also in the league and also my front office, was like, dude, I wanted every mon you've wanted. Now, I want to point out that Alex, first off, had the second overall draft pick, and second off, he had not requested any of the mons that I drafted until after I said I want them, and he said, no, I want that, because that sounds really good when you say it. Things like Girder and Shiftry were mons that he wanted, and I decided to pick up. So I said, fine, I will leave you, Mr. Mime. I will leave it for you specifically as long as I am able to pick up Mr. Rhyme, which was tier 3, which I think was a little bit too pricey for it. I don't think it really deserves to be tier 3. Especially don't think it deserves to be tier 3 when Galarian Mr. Mime was tier 5. Since that thing has it has base 100 speed, which is way better than base 70 of Mr. Rhyme, and it loses 20 points in special attack, which isn't a big deal when you do have access to Eviolite sets if you want them, and still access to all the good things Mr. Rhyme does. But that being said, this is a rapid spinner. So there's more hazard removal. Rapid Spinner, Ice type that I really wanted. Like I said, Ice type seems really good in this format. A Psychic type, which I also didn't have yet. And again, just lots of priority on this thing. I believe it gets Fake Out and Sucker Punch and maybe even Ice Shard. It also gets Psychic Terrain if I'm worried about like priority for my opponents. So that's really interesting. But it actually is just a great mon on the team. Filled a couple of roles and a couple of types that I just desperately wanted to fill. Very offensive types that, again, Mr. Mime with the base 100 speed probably would have done better. But I think the base 70 of Mr. Rhyme is going to get the job done in a much slower metagame than what has been we are used to in Gen 7. And his little dance is actually surprisingly viable because Screen Cleaner, you'd be surprised how many games someone is like, I will set up screens, and you can actually just like switch in and there they go, they're gone, wiped off the board, don't have to worry about them. And they're not like, I didn't know if it was nullified or if they were gone, so I've tested it on Showdown, and it's just it's like defog. It gets rid of screens. Straight up, they're gone. So it's not like they're nullified until he leaves and they come back. They're just gone. They are wiped off the board. So super good ability, super interesting mon. I'm definitely going to be excited to use this season. We've got plenty of weeks to try to use an ice type, and especially when you're still bringing 6 and you're only got 10 mons to pick from, you're going to be bringing all of them a little bit more than the 11 from before. So even though it's a late round pick and it's a little bit overpriced, I think it deserved a spot on the team. Its typing was exactly what I was looking for and nothing else could do, except obviously for Galarian Mr. Mime, but that's neither here nor there. So anyway, we grabbed Mr. Rhyme late, and there's only a couple picks left. And like I said earlier, I wanted a Psychic type, and I was debating which one to get, and I was actually going back and forth between Mr. Rhyme and Claydol. And then I realized I also needed a Ground type and an Ice type, and I decided, why not get both? Duplicate Psychics. It's the thing that I do. I run double Psychics on like every team I ever draft. So Claydol, another spinner, Ground type, which is my only electric immunity, which is really nice since I don't have an electric type. That is one thing I am certainly missing and longing for on this team. Don't have access to an electric type, but Claydol, it's surprisingly fast for a bulky wall. It's base 75, which in this meta is way better than you'd think it would be. Has great dual stabs offensively. It's got rocks, and as you can see, my only other rocker is Clefable, so I needed another rocker anyway. So it's got extra rocks, it's got spin, it's got, you know, levitate to be off the ground, which you also might look at my team and say, wow, you don't have a lot of things to switch into Earthquake. Yep, you're right. Claydol will help me with that. Shift Tree obviously will help me, and then my last mon will help me a little bit as well. But Claydol, the dynamic duo of Edgequake, doesn't threaten Claydol very much. Again, like I said at the beginning, look at all these mons that resist bug, so then I decided, let me draft all the mons that are weak to bug, so that U-turn does feel more spammable by my opponents. But that being said, I do think Claydol can take a couple of U-turns without being too afraid of anything, and this thing does have access to some pretty interesting moves. It's got, obviously, Ice Beam to cover a lot of its own weaknesses. It's got access to its dual stabs and Earth Power and Psychic, which cover so many different types, and even beyond that, it just has a weird variety of moves that it can utilize at any given moment. And then, of course, Rapid Spin getting the +1. Base 75, you don't think about Claydol being fast because it never really set up speed before. It might even get Rock Polish, who knows, but it doesn't really matter. But the fact that you can get a base 50 Rapid Spin off with the speed boost means that this thing can actually be used offensively. It doesn't have the best offensive stats, but like this thing can be used offensively and get some kills because it can surprise people by being a little bit faster than they think it is, which is pretty nice. And I think Claydol deserves to be used, deserve to be tried out in this league. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty excited to use it. And lastly, I decided to grab Vullaby. At the beginning, I said I wanted to get Poltegeist, Kinkeldurr, and Mandibuzz. It's not the way it went down, so I decided to grab Poltegeist, Girder, and Vullaby. I just said to myself I would never take more than 2 mons that would need Eviolite. I was looking at Piloswine, I was looking at Mr. Mime, but Girder and Vullaby were the 2 that ended up being the Eviolite mons I went with, and I think they are 2 of the best Eviolite mons, since Knockoff isn't even super effective against them. It's resisted on both of them, in fact. Vullaby and Girder, I do think, support Poltegeist incredibly well. This thing is another defog user. It is immune to any earthquakes coming its way. It is incredibly bulky. It's got Roost. It did not lose Toxic in the Generational Shift, where most mons did, so it does have access to that, which is super nice. So I do have Quillfish and Vullaby able to Toxic things if I do need to go that route. Don't have a lot of time, because they are 20-minute battles, and we haven't figured out how to work any other timer yet for consistency for the league, so we are using the 20-minute timer. So not a lot of time to Toxic stall, but like throwing Toxics around can be chip damage that is really vital, and Vullaby is perfect for that role. It's also an amazing pivot since it still has access to U-turn as well. And again, pivoting in and around the Durant and the Poltegeist is the strategy this season. If those 2 mons go down, I think I do have the general ability to kill whatever I need to kill with them before they go down to just mop up the rest with a team of just threats. But this team was crafted very carefully. It's got a great variety of types, in my opinion, a great variety of mons that do a lot of different roles, but do them all really, really well. And while I do think that it might get niched into a team that's like, yeah, you check all the boxes, but like show me the results, I feel like that's kind of where it's at. I think this team will show the results, and I am super excited to use a couple of new mons in Poltegeist and Mr. Rhyme. Additionally, getting the Dynamax Durant is going to be super fun this season. That thing is an absolute menace Dynamax, probably the best Dynamaxer that doesn't get access to a flying type move. And spoilers, after Home comes out, it gets Aerial Ace, meaning it can get its speed boost anyway. So Doesn't have it right now, but once home comes out, it will be able to get access to a flying type move, and that thing's going to become even more threatening then than it is now, and it's already probably one of the best ones to use Dynamaxing. So, all told, I think this is actually a draft I'm incredibly pleased with. It's one I was worried about for a long time, but I do think I actually came out to love this draft. And I hope you guys enjoyed this season of the PCL. Battles will be starting later on in 2020. We will not be having any battles this year, or at least none uploaded this year. I don't know if I'll be having a battle this year. None uploaded until next year. Oh my gosh, next decade, as everyone keeps joking. But we are going to get started with the PCL, and additionally check out the other team build, the other draft analysis that's going to be coming out shortly around the same time as this one. Have a happy holiday, everybody, to whatever holiday you celebrate. I hope you guys have a relaxing winter vacation for anyone who it's winter for, or summer break for anyone who it's summer for down in the other hemisphere. I actually don't know if I have any viewers down there, but if you are from down there, go ahead and leave a comment because I am very curious actually about that. And with that, I will get out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, thank you all from the bottom of my heart for sticking around and coming back to this channel, even after a huge hiatus and my second one ever on this channel. If you want to see any more content, I will be streaming over on the TTM YouTube channel. Check them out because both Danza and Styx are in this league as well. And make sure you can check out their PCL content. And additionally, I'll be streaming on my own Twitch channel. Link for that is in the description below. Anything else you want to know about, feel free to ask in my Discord. Link is always in the description. And I will see you guys around. Take care, everybody.